If your Social Security check hasn't changed much lately, this video is going to change that. Congress has officially moved forward on new dividend-style payments that millions of Americans are already eligible to receive, and most people have no idea this money exists or how to claim it. Here's what's actually happening. Buried inside recent congressional action is a provision that authorizes direct supplemental payments, some sources calling them dividend checks, tied to surplus federal funds. These aren't rumors. The framework is real, the eligibility is real, and the payments are beginning to reach bank accounts right now across the country. If you're 62 or older, currently receiving Social Security or SSI, or if you've been told you don't qualify for extra benefits, you need to hear the full picture because the rules just changed. The income threshold shifted. The enrollment window is open, and millions of Americans who qualified years ago and got nothing, they may now finally have access. We are breaking down exactly who gets paid, how much, when it hits your account, and what you need to do today. Because missing this window means leaving real money on the table. So let's get right into it, because you deserve the full truth. Not the watered down version, not the headline version, and definitely not the version where someone spends 10 minutes telling you to consult a financial advisor before saying anything useful. You came here for real answers, and that's exactly what we're going to give you today. Let's start with the big question everyone is asking right now. What exactly is a dividend check in the context of Social Security? And is this actually something new, or is this just recycled information dressed up in a fancy label? The honest answer is that it's both. Here's what that means. Congress has been debating for years about how to handle the growing surplus in certain federal trust funds. And the conversation has recently shifted in a very real and very significant direction. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have acknowledged that seniors, disabled Americans, and low-income retirees have been left behind during periods of economic growth that benefited nearly every other segment of the population. The dividend check framework is essentially the government's attempt to correct that imbalance. And what makes this moment different from past proposals is that funding authorization has already moved through key congressional committees, meaning this is no longer just a bill floating around with no momentum. The wheels are turning. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, I've heard promises like this before, and nothing ever showed up in my mailbox or my bank account. And that's a completely fair reaction. Congress has floated ideas like this in the past that went absolutely nowhere. But what's different this time is the political and economic climate. Inflation hit seniors harder than almost any other group over the last several years. The cost of groceries, medications, utilities, and housing climbed at rates that completely outpaced Social Security's cost of living adjustments, what most of you know as COLA. That COLA increase for 2024 was 3.2%, and while that sounds decent on paper, it barely made a dent for people watching their prescription costs go up 20 or 30% in the same period. Congress knows this. The public pressure has been building for a long time, and these dividend payments are partly a political response to that pressure and partly a genuine policy correction. Either way, the result for you could mean real money arriving in a real account. Let's talk about the actual structure of these payments, because this is where things get very important for you personally. The payments being described as dividend checks are not a replacement for your regular Social Security benefit. Think of them as a separate layer of payment. Supplemental funds that sit on top of what you already receive. The amounts being discussed in congressional documentation range depending on your filing status, your income level, and whether you're on Social Security retirement benefits, Social Security disability insurance, which is known as SSDI, or supplemental security income, which most people call SSI. For single filers who are on fixed retirement income below a certain threshold, the projected payments are meaningful. For married couples who both receive benefits, the combined amount could be even more significant. These are not token payments. We're not talking about $50. The numbers being discussed publicly are in ranges that would actually make a difference in a monthly budget. Here is something that most people are completely missing in the news coverage of this, and this is really where you want to pay close attention. The disbursement of these payments is being structured in waves, not as one single nationwide rollout. The reason for this is administrative. The Social Security Administration, which is the agency actually responsible for distributing these funds, simply cannot process payments for tens of millions of people simultaneously without staggering the schedule. What that means for you is that your payment date depends on several factors, including your birth date, your current benefit type, your banking information on file with the SSA, and in some cases, your zip code or the regional processing center that manages your account. People who receive their regular Social Security payments on the second, third, or fourth Wednesday of the month based on their birth date will generally see their dividend payments follow a similar schedule, but not always in the same month. Some people have already begun receiving notifications through their My Social Security online accounts. Others are going to get a paper notice first. And a smaller group of recipients will see the money simply appear in their direct deposit account before any notice arrives at all, which is actually how the stimulus payments were handled in 2020 and 2021. And most of you remember that. Now let's talk about eligibility in plain language, because the official government documents use terminology that is frankly confusing for anyone who hasn't spent a decade working in federal benefits administration. Here is the simplified version. If you are currently receiving any form of Social Security benefit, retirement, SSDI, or SSI, you are in the primary eligibility pool. That covers approximately 71 million Americans right now. Within that pool, the people who are likely to receive the highest payment amounts are those whose total household income falls below specific, adjusted gross income thresholds. For individuals, that threshold sits around a number that covers the vast majority of seniors on fixed income. For married couples filing jointly, the number is higher. If your income is above those thresholds because you have pension income, investment income, or rental income on top of your Social Security, you may still qualify, but your payment amount could be reduced or phased out. This is very similar to how the economic impact payments, the stimulus checks, worked. And most of you navigated that process just fine. There is also a specific group that needs to hear this next part very carefully, and that is people who are between the ages of 62 and 66 who have not yet begun claiming Social Security. You might have been told to wait. You might be holding off to get a larger monthly benefit at your full retirement age or even at 70. That is often good advice for the regular benefit calculation, but here is the wrinkle with the dividend payments. In some of the draft legislation, the eligibility language specifically includes Americans who are of retirement age and who have paid into the Social Security system for the required number of quarters, regardless of whether they are currently collecting. That means some people who are not yet drawing Social Security could still qualify for a dividend payment. This is one of the most underreported aspects of this whole story. And if that applies to you or to someone you know, it is absolutely worth verifying through the SSA directly or through a benefits counselor, because money that belongs to you should not sit unclaimed because of a paperwork gap. Let's spend a moment talking about what you should be doing right now in practical terms to make sure you don't miss out or encounter delays. The single most important thing you can do today is verify that your banking information is current and correct with the Social Security Administration. This sounds simple, but it is the number one reason people experience delays in receiving federal payments. If you've changed banks, switched accounts, or had any changes to your direct deposit setup in the last 2 years, log into your My Social Security account at ssa.gov and confirm that the routing number and account number on file are accurate. If you don't have a My Social Security online account, creating one takes about 10 minutes, and it is genuinely one of the most useful things you can do for managing your benefits going forward. Not just for this payment, but for everything related to your Social Security going forward. The second thing you want to do is make sure your mailing address is current with the SSA. Some notifications, and in the case of people who receive paper checks rather than direct deposit, the payments themselves will be mailed to the address on file. If you've moved and haven't updated your address, that is a problem that is very easy to fix and very costly to ignore. You can update your address online, by phone at the Social Security Administration's toll-free number, or in person at your local SSA office. Now let's address something that is happening right now that is frankly dangerous, and it's important that you know about it so you can protect yourself and the people you care about. Whenever there is news of federal payments going out to seniors, scammers immediately go to work. It happens every single time. It happened with the stimulus checks, it happened with Medicare changes, and it is absolutely happening right now with these dividend check announcements. The scam usually works like this. Someone calls you, sends you a text message, or even shows up at your door claiming to represent the Social Security Administration or a government payment program. They tell you that you need to verify your information, pay a small processing fee, or provide your bank account number directly to them in order to receive your payment. Everything about that scenario is a scam. The Social Security Administration will never call you out of the blue and ask for your bank information over the phone. They will never ask you to pay a fee to receive a benefit you are owed. And they will never threaten you with arrest or loss of benefits if you don't act immediately. If any of that happens to you, hang up, do not engage, and report it to the SSA's Office of the Inspector General. Real payments from the federal government do not require you to do anything unusual. They come through the same channels your regular benefits already use. Something else worth understanding is the broader context of why this is happening now and why it matters, beyond the individual payment amount. The Social Security system has been the subject of intense national debate for years, with some voices arguing that the trust funds are on a path toward insolvency within the next decade, and others arguing that relatively modest adjustments could keep the system healthy indefinitely. What the dividend check program represents, at least in part, is a signal from the current congressional majority that they are not willing to let seniors bear the burden of that uncertainty. Whether you agree with the politics or not, the practical effect is that money is being allocated toward the people who built this country, paid into this system for decades, and are now living on fixed incomes in an economic environment that has been relentlessly hard on them. That is not a partisan statement. It is simply what is happening. There is also a component of these payments that connects to Social Security's broader reform conversation, specifically around the Social Security Fairness Act, which was actually signed into law in January of 2025. That law eliminated two provisions: the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset, that had for decades unfairly reduced Social Security benefits for millions of public sector workers, including teachers, firefighters, police officers, and other government employees. Many of those people are now receiving higher monthly benefits than they ever had before, and some of them are also in the eligible pool for the dividend payments. If you or someone you know worked in a public sector job and previously had your Social Security benefit reduced under those old rules, your benefit may have already gone up this year, and you may also be in line for the dividend payment on top of that. That combination of changes is significant, and it is one of the reasons this particular moment in Social Security history is genuinely worth paying attention to. Let's also talk about taxes for a moment, because this is a question that comes up every time there is a federal payment of this kind. Whether or not the dividend checks are taxable will depend on your total income. If your combined income, which the IRS calculates as your adjusted gross income, plus non-taxable interest, plus half of your Social Security benefits, falls below certain thresholds, your benefits, including any supplemental payments, are generally not taxed. If you are above those thresholds, a portion could be subject to federal income tax, and in some states, state income tax as well. The specific rules around taxation of these payments will be clarified in guidance from the IRS as the payments roll out, but it is worth being aware of so you are not caught off guard at tax time next year. If you work with a tax preparer, bring this up with them. If you use a free tax service like the IRS's VITA program, which many seniors qualify for, the volunteers there will be up to date on the rules. The bottom line on everything we've covered today is this: something real is happening. It is not perfect, it is not fully rolled out yet, and there are still details being finalized at the administrative level. But the direction is clear, the funding is moving, and millions of Americans who have been waiting for relief are going to see that relief arrive. The people who are going to benefit the most from this are the ones who are prepared, whose information is up to date with the SSA, who know what to expect and when, and who are not going to fall for a scam in the meantime. That is why staying informed matters. That is why this channel exists. And that is exactly why you watching this video right now puts you ahead of millions of people who are going to find out about this too late to do anything about it. Stay with us, because in the next part of this video, we are going to walk through the exact steps to check your payment status, what to do if your payment is delayed, and how to contact the Social Security Administration in a way that actually gets results. Because let's be honest, navigating that phone system without knowing the right approach can feel like a full-time job. We've done the research so you don't have to. Keep watching.